let's see. There's Sarah.
Hello.
Are you here, Ellie? I
Yes.
just can't see you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry for those who are tuning in via video. My camera has stopped working, but we're just going to roll with it and go with my voice for now, and I may appear at some point.
Well, take it away. The phones are working, and I'm standing by.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ron. Much appreciated.
I should mention this is WRW Cape, Midlothian, Virginia, and this is, of course, Finding Our Fit with guest host or hostess or host, Allie Fisher. There you go. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron. Thank you for that kind introduction. So again, my name is Allie Fisher, and this is Finding Our Fit. The purpose of finding our fit is to find our place in our chaotic, beautiful world. And doing so, we will enrich our world and create a brighter future for everyone and everything, especially Earth. I'm a monthly guest host filling in for Dr. Susanna Calvert, who is the founder and executive director of the Foundation for Family and Community Healing. I am the convener for communications at the Foundation for Family and Community Healing, and we're in for a treat because my guest today, Dr. Sarah Norton, is also with us at the Foundation. Our mission is to help everyone find their fit through mental, emotional, and relationship skill education. You can check us out at healingedu.org. So we do this program to help us make sense of our world so that we can choose to lean into that which makes us feel peaceful and grounded. Many of us tend to focus on the chaotic and overwhelming things in our lives, forgetting that the flip side is opportunities to find and create beauty and healing. And it can be really tough to focus on that flip side. In Finding Our Fit, we focus on the beautiful side where we can learn and grow and become wiser and more resilient by adopting a healthier relationship with everyone and everything. It's important to choose both yin and yang to create balance and conditions for healing. And it's a practice that we choose every day. So if you would like to join the conversation with us today, we would love to have your comments either on the live stream on Facebook or on YouTube, or you can call into the radio at 804-464-1089. We'd love to hear from you. And again, we're in for a treat today. We have Dr. Sarah Norton with us, and we're going to be exploring how the unconscious can guide us, inspire creativity, and become a form of inspiration and wisdom in our changing world. Join us for a glimpse at depth psychology, which I have learned so much about from Sarah and knew nothing about prior. So if you're out of your depth, me too, and we'll get through it together. And we'll look at some thoughts about how to imagine a way forward in an uncertain future and some practical tips about dreams and how to get meaning from them. So Dr. Sarah Norton is the convener for education here at the Foundation for Family and Community Healing, where she and the education team work to design and develop online modules to guide learners to build habits, skills, and support their connection with themselves, others, and Earth. She is also an independent scholar who earned her master's and PhD in depth psychology with an emphasis in Jungian and archetypal psychology at Pacifica Graduate Institute. She completed her dissertation, which you'll hear about, Arctic Imaginings, Chasing Ice Through Jung's Liber Novus, hopefully I'm saying everything correctly, into the 21st century, which she defended on Earth Day of 2020. So kind of a serendipitous thing there. She has a passion for intersectional environmentalism, dream work, and creativity, and she writes about climate change and current events from an archetypal perspective. And we'll put a couple of links in the chat to see where you can learn more about Sarah and see some of the work that she does, including a publication called The Rose in the World and her own personal website. So be on the lookout for those. For those of you who are just listening, it's roseintheworld.org and then sdnortonphd.net. So hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Great.
Success. It's so much fun to have the opportunity to do this with you, both as a colleague and as a friend, and as two dreamers who wanna tap into our creative sides and make the world a better place in practical ways simultaneously. So I'm very excited for this conversation.
Yes, me too.
So to really just kind of jump right in, what is the unconscious slash and the field of depth psychology?
Yeah, well, we're going to try to boil it down to a manageable amount here, since it did take me quite a number of years to get a PhD in the program. You can imagine it's a very large topic. um, but generally speaking, depth psychology is the study of the unconscious. So when we talk about the unconscious in my field, it's pretty much anything and everything that is outside of your conscious thought process. So things that you notice, things that you're really aware of, that you interact with on a day-to-day basis, anything that you're really, able to focus on and work with without too much diving into those depths. On the other side of that is your unconscious is everything that is just outside or very deeply in the area of psyche or the world that you can't easily interact with. So in my field, we talk about dreams, we talk about mythology, so the threads of myths that find their way through all different kinds of cultures and throughout history and just everywhere in the world. And oh, and I see Allie has dropped off the call and needs to be let back in. Don't know if I hope Ron can do that in the background. But one of the beautiful things I think about the unconscious is that it is a place full of mystery and a lot of intrigue, and there's so many things in our unconscious that we get to interact with and bump into every now and then, especially through dreams. So that's really my place in what I'm going to be talking about a lot today. And again, I think Allie is waiting backstage, but I don't know how we can get her back in. um, is don't know if anybody in the radio studio is able to make that happen. Maybe. um, okay, well, guess we'll hope that Allie will be able to join back in soon. I we'll just sort of continue talking and hope that Allie will be here soon. So a few more things that people might be interested in and might have questions about. I know that I get it a lot is the question of what's the difference between the unconscious and the subconscious? Because I know a lot in popular culture and sort of in some of the sort of personal psychology work, we hear the talk of the subconscious. And the subconscious and the unconscious they have a lot in common. There are some similarities between them. But especially in my field, the unconscious is really what it's all about. We don't use the term subconscious because innately to me, the term sort of means that all of that we can't connect with as easily or readily all the time is somewhat lesser than, because sub, points to being below. And really, the unconscious is just everywhere, all around us, whether we know it's there or not. It's really not below so much. If we think of consciousness as a higher level and then the unconscious is lower, but most people talk about it as kind of that area right in between. So those things that we can really sort of dip into more easily. Um, we think of like Freudian slips. You say something that you didn't mean to say, but it really holds a whole lot of meaning, a lot of depth. And we so that's sort of that to me is sort of the dividing line between the unconscious or the subconscious. Freud at one point called it also the pre-conscious, so it's like just outside of consciousness. One of the ways that we think about it too is that we have, you've probably seen the iceberg image. And so, like, above the water line is consciousness, and below the water line is the unconscious. And like lapping at that in between space would be sort of the pre-conscious, subconscious area. But again, in my field, that's not such a common term. Um, we really tend to lean into the unconscious of it all. And I see we have Allie back.
Woohoo! Oh my gosh, you are the true MVP. So sorry about that. Thank you for rolling with it. And gosh, yeah, I was listening the whole time, and the piece about the difference between the unconscious and the subconscious feels so nuanced, and I was very much almost like overwhelmed by the difference, and then you've done such a wonderful job of explaining it to help get a grasp on the difference there, and really that it's just kind of an interpretation of the same thing from different lenses. Could you speak a little bit more to that piece?
Yeah, I mean, for me, what I really love about using the term unconscious, and I'm one of those that I I I don't hold it against anybody if you use subconscious. It just doesn't feel quite as right to me. And because the unconscious really points to so much mystery and so much beauty, and really that level that anything can come up from. A lot of it, a lot of times we hear things coming up from the unconscious or the subconscious as being really difficult things that really put us through trials and tribulations, and that that's very true. That can be one aspect of it, but I think using this idea of the unconscious um, as being really all inclusive allows for that space of those things don't necessarily have to be bad things. Even if they initially appear bad, in the unconscious, the archetypes and the energies there are really subjective to us. They in themselves don't have good or bad. It's what we put on them. So when we're dealing with dreams, especially in my field of dream work, the school of dream work, I guess, that I really grew up through. One of our foundational ideas is that dreams come in the service of health and wholeness. So even if you have the worst nightmare you have ever had, it is there to teach you, to guide you, to heal you in some way. It's there to bring you wisdom that you need.
Mm, that is such a powerful thing to believe and to connect with, and to think that there's this world kind of waiting for us to plug into to receive information that we need to have. I think for me personally, it is both exciting and intriguing, but then it's also kind of scary. Like, what if I am told I need to go on some wild quest that feels too big for me, or what if it's telling me something that's kind of dark or scary, like climate change I mean, there's a lot going on right now, and not a lot of hope. And so the task of connecting to that space and receiving information that might be overwhelming is kind of scary to me. And I know you have direct experience, so much direct experience with interpreting and experiencing your unconscious and remembering your dreams and reflecting on them. And so I'd love to hear both, like, from your topic of the unconscious and climate change and your dissertation process, to like the dreams that you've had, and I think that you were also going to share a dream, so I'd love to understand what that process is like for you. And just a reminder to our listeners, this is WRWK 93.9 FM. I am talking with Dr. Sarah Norton about dreams, creativity, and climate, connecting to ourselves, others, and Earth. So Sarah, yeah, what is the process like for you, whether it be your dissertation process or the process of understanding a particular dream?
Yeah, well, to me, a lot of it has to do with just being intentional about my dream work, especially.
Mhm.
Because for me, a lot of the contents that I write about, even in my really academic setting, relates back to the dream. I sort of just swim in the world of dreams a lot, and it means so much to me. Um, Having to encounter any aspect of my life, but in my dissertation work specifically, my focus was on climate change and really the unconscious process of grief that I feel like we're all going through, and how that really came to be alive and important to me was that I had a really embodied experience with images of the melting ice in Antarctica that someone brought to one of my master's course classes. We were talking about creativity and sort of art making and things like that. And this person had done a video of the Antarctic ice. And you can't really view these beautiful images without sort of knowing what's going on there in our world, that it is melting. Things are changing in those spaces very quickly. And I just sat and wept. I mean, I just full body weeping
Hmm.
for those images. And it was something that was so much bigger than me or any personal grief. I felt like I was just weeping for every aspect of our world. And from that point on, I started having dreams with these amazing images of ice in them. And I knew that that was where I had to take my work, was that it was really calling out to me. So just I could have brushed that off as a weird experience and never thought about it again. But because it was so alive and so just so emotional, and then I started having the dreams afterwards. So that's why I say I think just to open ourselves up to it and to really focus and be intentional about these moments of deep feeling, or even a snippet of a dream that just sticks with you and won't let go. All of that is so important to all of this, and it's a way to really focus in on even these really large issues like climate change.
Hmm. You know, I have a question for you that may not be answerable, but I'm very curious. Just hearing the focus be so much about being intentional, I feel like sometimes I will have an experience in my conscious life or conscious world where something really hits me, and I know, ooh, like there's something here. I need to figure it out. Why am I crying? Because I saw, a bunny on the side of the road, like there,
Mhm.
there's which maybe that's a good reason to cry. My goodness. But you know, thinking about those things that hit me and then wanting to react, like, do you believe that there is a certain, when you say that there are these things that are being highlighted to us that we should be focusing on, that we have access to through our unconscious, do you have any guess or conjecture as to what is making those things appear to us? Whether it's like this energetic force or some other thing that is kind of guiding what we focus on. Is it the divine? Just curious on your interpretation of that piece.
Yeah. Well, from in my field, the work of Carl Jung, I think, is especially helpful. He did a lot of work with an idea that he called synchronicity, which is basically a meaningful coincidence. Um, but I think that doesn't even quite do the topic justice.
Hmm.
It's really it's something that happens that you you know just cannot explain. That it relates to something. You keep having images sort of pop up over and over, or you're talking about someone or something, and they call. You know,
Hmm.
and those moments that just sort of seem really like almost a divine hand, or just so fantastical that you can't imagine that they just happened. That kind of a meaningful coincidence is what we also call, it's like bumping up into something numinous. And the numinous is like the most sacred, awe-inspiring anything.
Mm.
We talk about having numinous dreams, and those are the ones that are just, oh my gosh, you wake up and you just go, wow, and you just can't let go of it, or it can't let go of you. and and I think we have a tendency to not pay as much attention to those things just because life is really busy a lot,
Mm.
and but then we often get moments where we can look back and go, oh gosh, I remember that happened. Or maybe you had a dream and then the next day you see something that reflects an image from that dream. um
Mm.
and those things, Jung was much more spiritual than a lot of people like to talk about. I think sometimes. Um, and we don't really like to place him in that sort of context, but there is a lot of sort of spiritual veins that run through his work, and really there's sort of that idea of the divine coming through the unconscious, a divine wisdom, sort of
Mm.
a guiding hand, especially if you're really aware and paying attention.
Yeah. So it sounds like, regarding the whatever source of this divine wisdom, it can really be applied to whatever anyone's personal beliefs are.
Oh yeah,
And it,
yeah.
it doesn't have to be one or the other. Maybe it's all of the above, which I think is a really beautiful thing about this work, is that it is accessible to everyone. And as you mentioned in our prior conversation that we had, like, animals sleep and dream, and it's a shared experience of all beings that really doesn't discriminate as long as we put our attention there. Because I know some folks will say, like, I don't think I dream, or if I dream, I don't remember it. I just
Mhm.
pass out so hard. I'm always so tired. And so I think it is interesting, and we'll get into some practical tips about how to dream. But before we do that, um, I'd love to hear. I know that you sometimes have a dream and then create artwork from it, and that's something that Jung also did. Could you share a little bit about bringing something from the unconscious to the conscious through art, and like what that process means for you and how it helps you understand what you experienced in your dreams?
Yeah, I have for a long time kept a dream journal, and at some point I started sketching in it, and then I started collaging in it, for me, it's just it really makes a new opening for that creative energy that comes up from the unconscious through the dreams. But it also helps us to reconnect with those images in a more conscious and intentional way. So when I have a dream and it's really meant a lot to me and I want to dive into it more, not only do I sometimes do dream group work, which is a big part of my background, is working with people in dream groups to discuss their dreams together. But I also do my own personal work with dreams. And that process of being creative with them can really open up almost a dialogue with the images where you can bring those nighttime dreams into a new space. And one of my favorites, like I said, is to collage. So you'll have a dream and you can go through magazines and pull out pictures that sort of reflect that, and then start playing around with what other images come up for you. And you can sort of almost bring the dream forward and continue the narrative in your waking life, which can give us a lot of insight as well about our own personal process and what's going on in our conscious space as it connects to these unconscious images.
I love that. It sounds like not only is it helpful in processing things that have meaning in our lives and things that are coming up for us over and over, it also just sounds fun. And um I think that adults don't have enough fun with artwork and being creative and letting go of like the ego that comes with creating artwork, especially if it's not something you do regularly. And just to say, well, you know what? I am writing about my dream. It's what I saw. Nobody's going to be able to say that doesn't look like what you saw because they're not going to know what I saw. And I might have that own judgment about myself and the way that I'm able to put my dreams to light, because I think often, it's like I'm never good enough and my art is never up to par with what I want it to be. But I think that there can be a real shedding of that feeling through doing it over and over and exploring with it. And it can also be kind of like a private thing. You don't have to share it with anyone necessarily, or you can work your way up to that.
Yeah.
It sounds so fun. Is there artwork that you'd be open to describing or saying what the process was like for you from dream to artwork to maybe even action after?
Yeah, well, I'll share a dream that I had during my dissertation process, and it's in my thesis um, as part of my research. And it really connects to this idea of climate change. So the dream is that I'm on a black sand beach inlet in a round cove of some kind. I'm wandering down the beach and I set my stuff down next to a stone. It's very overcast and gray, the sky and the landscape. I have my camera with me and I keep adjusting it. Suddenly, a glint of light reflects off of something and catches my eye. I see a large divided glass bottle farther down towards the water. There's a remnant of some sort of golden liquid in it, maybe an inch deep on one half. I start to walk back up the beach, taking the bottle with me. Looking up, as if something caught my attention again, I see an opening through the cove. There are huge icebergs floating by. The ocean is full of them, miles high, white and beautiful. I can see blue shades in one of them that are just amazing, and that's what caught my eye against this gray landscape. I try to take a picture, but I realize the tide is coming in. So there's a little bit more to the dream, but that's sort of the essence of it.
Mm.
And I woke up from that dream just so sad that these things were passing by so quickly and I couldn't get a picture of them.
Mm.
And for me, I thought, well, I need to make that picture for myself. I really need to see that to feel a little bit better about this sort of moment in this dream. And so I started sketching, and I did a picture. I just sketched out a picture of the cove and these icebergs floating by. And then I did another one that shows the bottle on the beach. And then I went through and after that started looking through pictures in an online catalog like clip art kind of,
Mhm.
and found some things that sort of matched with my dream and put them together in that way as a
Mhm.
as a collage, kind of just to sort of be back in that space and in that place, and to hold on to that moment that I couldn't consciously in the dream.
Mhm.
And it really just I eventually dove into sort of the more symbolic aspects of it from a personal and collective level and all of this for the dissertation. But just that moment of sort of going back to that place, um, that was such a beautiful space in my dream, um, really helped me sit with that feeling of loss.
Mm.
Because there was a real moment where it was just like, "Oh, I'll never see that again. It was so beautiful, and I'll never see it again."
Mm.
And I won't. I mean, it was a dream. I can't necessarily go back there, but I can have some semblance of it, and I can still live into that place and feel what it felt like. And every time I go back to that collage or those sketches, I find myself there again.
Mm.
Um, so it's really a sort of comforting process,
Mhm.
especially for dreams that are like that. Um, but it can, you can do all different kinds of things with it depending on the style of the dream and the way that you like to do artwork. It's a fun way to play as
Mm.
an adult.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing about the dream specifically that you had. And your recounting of it is also beautifully written and definitely helped me feel transported there. And it makes me curious to see the artwork that you created from it. Um, and it reminds me a little bit. Sometimes I will meditate and do visualization exercises. I have this little hut in the rainforest that I go to by a little swimming area that is somehow free of things that might eat me. And there in the hut, there's like a massage table, and somehow I don't know who it is, but I'm getting a massage when I go there. And so it's my little escape when I really feel like I need to recharge. And so it's
Mm,
like a similar thing. Like if you go somewhere in a dream, what is stopping you from going back there, at least mentally? And so, some things, of course, it is devastating that the icebergs were moving away from you, and that's definitely symbolic of the fact that I hope they don't exist entirely, and if they I mean sorry, I hope they don't disappear entirely, and if they do, we're in big trouble. But to have that moment with them is both beautiful and sad. And so it just sounds like through our dreams we can access the full spectrum of emotion and experience, and then have the opportunity to go back there. So it's like instead of having FOMO or fear of missing out on certain things, like we can go anywhere, we can do anything, with this access to that unconscious space through dreams. So that's really exciting to me. um, and just a reminder for our listeners, this is WRWK 93.9 FM. I'm Allie Fisher. This is the show Finding Our Fit. I'm here with Sarah Norton, and we are talking about dreams and the unconscious and climate change. So it is quite the topic today. Um, and so I also, so from dream to art, so from unconscious to conscious, I think that in my mind, and maybe in the minds of some of our listeners, there's maybe this other step that goes towards the more practical. And I know that for you and I'm sure there's much truth and value in this, but the dreaming and the artwork in and of itself is practical. And the fact that your dissertation included an interpretation of a dream as one might include information from gathering data as they studied something in a more, scientific, well, what one would call a more scientific way. However, knowing that there is value in the work itself, I am curious about practical applications or the way that dreaming and the unconscious can lead to practical applications in the conscious state, like activism and community work and that sort of thing. So, what has that been like for you or for other people in the dream groups that you've been in?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the many valuable parts of dreams when it comes to sort of a lot of what we talk about at the foundation and on this radio show, I know Susanna and you both touch on it a lot. It's sort of how do we take that out into the world and into our relationships and things like that. And for me, so much of the dream time can really open me up to other viewpoints I never would have been aware of, to a level of empathy and compassion that I, have in my waking life, but then in the dream space, you can connect with things you may never connect with in waking life. You may go places, you may meet people, you may interact with beings or landscapes or animals or anything that you would never have the chance to physically connect to. And I feel like that really gives us an extra boost in our empathy and our compassion for what's going on in the world and with others. And by doing dream work, either with a group or on your own, you can really go to that level within yourself. Um, One of the really sort of basic ideas in Jung's work with dreams was that every aspect of the dream is a part of us.
Mhm.
So everything that's in the dream is partly me. So if in this dream of the cove and the icebergs, part of me is that iceberg. So what is that in me that's floating by so quickly? What part of me is the containing cove? You know, so once we can sort of get that sense, I think it opens us up to the world in that anybody that I can connect to, if I can think of it as a dream, there's something in them that I can see reflected back and really take forward in building those relationships or finding something to be passionate about in a movement to, you know, for any number of things, climate change, racial issues, injustice, all of these things that we're encountering all the time. It's going on in the world. I am also part of the world. It's in my dream. I am also, connected to these images in my dreams. So that to me is just a really beautiful um, aspect of dream work that I feel is very practical.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's reminding me, my dad often says when people are complaining about the maybe political things or people not being active enough in the world and making a change, he always says like it's not them, it's us, it's we. We're all a part of it together. And so really that just being angry about it doesn't do a whole lot, but having that degree of empathy and understanding the vast experiences of the people around us through dreams. And yeah, how am I an iceberg floating away? How am I the cove that the iceberg found refuge in even for a short period of time? How am I the glass bottle? How am I whatever piece and part? And to explore each of those things, it just feels like every element of a dream, there's kind of limitless pathways to go down. And one thing that you mentioned to me previously is that sometimes in a dream group, one person has a dream and they say, I didn't understand this dream at all. And then another person says, oh my gosh, then that was for me. I know what that means. Could you share a little bit about that? That just sounds like such a powerful and wild experience to have or to be a part of a group where that's happening.
Yeah, well, and that sort of connects back to the idea of synchronicity that we were
Mhm.
talking about before.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've been a member in dream groups and led them off and on for a long time. Quite a number of years. Well, almost into 2 decades now. So,
Wow.
and it never ceases to amaze me that in a dream group you'll have those moments where somebody just is having a really hard time recalling a dream, or they've had a really sort of barren period where they just really can't catch those dreams when they wake up in the morning. And somebody will share in group and they'll go, yeah, I had this dream and I guess I'll share it. And but it didn't really, feel like it meant a whole lot to me, but I'll just put it out there. And a lot of what we do in this projective dream work method is that you tell the dream to the group, and then you sort of hand that dream over to them. And the dream becomes the dream of everybody in the group. And this really is a reflection of how we feel about dreams and the images from dreams, that they are universal. So anytime you hear a dream, those images can mean whatever they mean to you, and they may mean something entirely different to somebody else who's listening to the dream at the same time. And so in these groups, it almost always happens that when we get to the point where people are reflecting back over the sharing that's been done, that somebody says, well, I just have to tell you, that dream was my dream. And I'm not just saying it was my dream in the context of this space and this group, but that dream was meant for me. Like I needed that now. And all those images that were going on were things that I'm dealing with or that I feel a connection to. And I just, it's such a sort of beautiful, miraculous almost moment every time. And again, that's what we think of as a synchronicity,
Mhm.
that there was a meaningful coincidence. They just happened to be in that group at the time that dream was shared by that dreamer, and it was just meant to be.
Yeah. That's such a powerful thing, and I've always loved the word synchronicity, and then you use the word numinous today, which I did not know prior, and it sounds like it doesn't mean something good at first. Numinous, it's like ominous or dubious,
Yeah.
and
Well,
and
one of the definitions of it, or sort of, is it's terrible and wonderful.
ooh, I love that. Okay, all right, we got the full spectrum with numinous then.
Yeah.
I love it. So yes, thank you for introducing me to that word and its meaning. And I do want to address, like, for the skeptic or for the person who says, I don't really remember my dreams, not so sure about this. What would you recommend for, like, kind of dipping your toe into the water of dreams, in order to just get started on remembering them more or trying to interpret them? And just right before you answer that question, a reminder to our listeners that this is WRWK 93.9 FM. This is a show, Finding Our Fit. I'm here with Dr. Sarah Norton. My name is Allie Fisher. If you would like to join the conversation, you can call in at 804-464-1089. We would love to hear from you. If you have a dream you'd like to share, we don't have time to do a full analysis of it, but maybe a point or two could be pointed out by Sarah here. Or if you want to put something in the comments on either YouTube or on Facebook, we would love to hear from you. All right, so Sarah, yes, practical tips for the skeptic.
Yeah. Well, I'll say that scientifically, everybody dreams every night. So whether you think you're dreaming or not, it's happening. Um, but from a more sort of subjective perspective, it can be really hard sometimes to hold on to those dreams, and certainly to really take the time to focus in on them and do something like a dream journal. It is a really, intentional process. But one of the things that, or some of the tips that we talk about in Dream Group, especially when people are first starting out, is just really setting the stage. Like, you decide you want to pay attention to your dreams, you gather what you need to make that happen. So I think I told Allie the last time we talked, I put all my dreams in my phone. But before I go to bed, I turn the brightness down as low as it will go. So if I wake up in the middle of the night, it's not so jarring for me to type out my dream in that way. But some people like to actually physically write in a journal. They also make pens that have lights on the end of them.
Mhm.
So it's not like you're, illuminating your whole room. But you put whatever it is in the place that you know you'll use it in the middle of the night or when you wake up in the morning, and really setting that stage, being really intentional about it, can be a really good first step um, to sort of cultivating that relationship with your dreams.
Mhm.
Um, there are other sort of, practical things that people will say, like drink a big glass of water before you go to bed, because then you'll have to get up in the middle of the night to run to the restroom. And it gives your mind sort of a, you wake up probably, possibly in the middle of a dream. And because often our REM cycles, we'll cycle through 2 or 3 REM cycles a night, and maybe you'll catch one
Mhm.
where the dreams are really vivid, and then you can write it down.
Mhm.
Um, Another one that I found really helpful is if I do wake up and I've sort of missed it, that my alarm goes off and I start thinking about a million things. If I can quiet my mind back down and sort of try to remember where my body was when I woke up, being in that space somatically and in your body, um, can kind of take you back to that
Mhm.
moment of when you first woke up, and then sort of track back what you can remember from the dream. But you never know. When I first started doing dream work, just setting the intention to pay attention to my dreams was all I needed. I mean, I had never really paid much attention to dreams before. And then I went to a dream conference and I went, oh, wow, there's, gosh, you can get so much from dreams. I'd really like to do that. And I started remembering my dreams almost every night, sort of like epic dreams that would go on and on.
Wow.
So sometimes be careful what you wish for.
That is wild that it was such a smooth, well, such a jarring, I guess, more so transition to getting to remember your dreams. And I wanted to ask, I think personally, I don't always like to interrupt my sleep because sometimes it's hard for me to fall back to sleep. So I don't
Mhm.
like when I have to wake up in the middle of the night and go to the restroom. I don't really
Yeah.
want a massive glass of water. Um, but is there a way where someone can go too far down the rabbit hole and be too obsessed with the dreaming and the unconscious to the extent that they're missing out on sleep that they need because they're so focused on waking up and catching dreams? Has that occurred for you or for folks that you know, or is it not really a concern?
I don't know that I've heard that. I know, like I said, when I started having these really epic dreams, it was difficult at first because I wanted to get them down and be able to look back on them and remember them. So to take that extra time in the morning, that was tough. To find the time to like write it all out. Um, but I mean, I would say, with anything else in life, like moderation is key. And anything that you can remember from a dream,
Mm,
even if it's the tiniest little snippet that seems just ridiculous and inane, it was meant to be remembered. And
Mm,
you would be surprised if you really focused in on it, took it to a dream group, decided to create artwork with it, whatever you want to do with it, that it will offer you so much guidance, and it would probably expand the conversation between you and your unconscious.
mhm.
So even by just getting that one little piece and looking at it further can spur more dreams to follow.
Mm, got it. Okay. Yeah. So, like, if I randomly remembered a dream about the eraser falling off the end of my pencil and I wanted to create some artwork about that, it would ultimately lead to more like, I should be a famous author.
Well, you never know. Yeah, but one also practical tip is dreams are rarely meant to be taken literally.
Ugh,
So we
well,
want to
okay.
really look at the symbolic sort of mythological level, because they come from the unconscious. So they're probably something that are outside of our conscious awareness, and that's why you really want to dive into these images to see what you may not already know.
Yeah, I like the direct, easy interpretation, pencil writing, pen, like pen permanent. However, I realized that is not the case, and I remember several months back you helped me interpret a dream, and it definitely was symbolic. It was also a very weird dream that involved a large black bird and a red balloon and me flying through the streets. So it was definitely a unique one. But say somebody wants to just begin, so they dip their toe in, they drink a big glass of water before bed, they buy a pen that lights up a cool color, they're ready to go. When it comes to the interpreting piece, because the remembering is only really part of the journey, the
Mhm.
interpreting piece feels like so much more. And I imagine that different cultures have different ways of interpreting the same symbol, maybe. Like, where would you start if you were talking where if you were suggesting to a beginner where to start? If it's a website or a book, just one resource. What is a place to start?
Yeah, well, I think you can Google all kinds of things. They're great resources, and I would never say that one is necessarily better than the other, but I would say that things like online dream dictionaries or print dream dictionaries can be a really good place to start, but I wouldn't say it's the end all be all of dream interpretation.
Mhm,
So I have a couple of dream dictionaries that I love, and I'll look up, if I have a dream, I'll look up the meaning. But what's so important is to really explore it from your perspective and what you do and in your life, and only you can really know what your dreams are about. So
mm,
even when we do dream group, um, everybody gives all these ideas, and we tell the dreamer always, what is meant to hit for you is what you need to pay attention to. If it
mhm,
doesn't feel right, it wasn't meant for you.
mm,
um there are some really great, um well, I'll plug a little, but the the
mhm,
Rose in the World that I edit, that they were so kind to put the link up for. We have a list of all the different dream groups that
mhm,
are sort of connected to our network, and I work with a group called the Natural Spirituality Gathering, and they host an online dream group once a month. And I think really getting into a dream group is a lot of fun,
mhm,
and can give you a lot of insight and sort of connect with other people. But
mhm,
even just working with your own dreams, another thing that I use sometimes is oracle cards.
mm,
They have like all different ones that you can get, and some of them that I have are about animals. So if I have a dream about an animal, I'll pull the card that tells me all about what that animal means. And
mhm,
again, I can just give you some really good sort of starting points of what it might mean to you. Um,
mhm,
you know,
mhm,
it just depends on your level of interest. You can do everything from just working on it on your own to joining a dream group to getting into Jungian analysis, or like I did, I went and got a PhD. So
Well, I expect at least one person listening right now to be on their way to a PhD in depth psychology.
So yeah, there are a lot of ways to work with dreams, and none of them are bad, I don't think. I think just opening up that conversation to begin with is so important.
Yeah, just from a quick Google search, I mean, there's dreammoods.com, there's dreamdictionary.org, dreambible.com, Cafe au Sol.
Oh
Um,
yeah, well, all kinds. Yeah. Well, there's some great. I mean, the Hayden Institute is where I did my dream training, and
mhm.
there's the International Association for the Study of Dreams, which I think has a conference coming up soon.
Ah,
And they look at dreams from like a scientific perspective all the way through to really sort of personal, creative, more Jungian kind of perspective.
mhm,
Um, Pacifica Graduate Institute has lots of sort of, they have their retreat program that's like sort of continuing education
mhm.
offerings. And there's also dream tending, which is another really interesting way of working with dreams that's sort of different than the projective method. So, really, there are so many to choose from and look into.
Okay, dream tending. My goodness. There's a whole world. So it's a book, Awakening the Healing Power of Dreams.
Yeah, yeah. Steve Eisenstadt, um, who wrote that book, was part of Pacifica's faculty and the chancellor there. And he presented at the conference, the Natural Spirituality Gathering
Mhm.
that I helped organize. He
Uh-huh.
was our keynote speaker this past February. And
Okay.
and some of the natural spirituality offerings are now sort of using some of his dream tending methods a lot more.
Okay. You know, it's funny when you said Steve Eisenstadt, I thought you said Steve Eisen's dad, and I was like, I don't think I know Steve Eisen. I'll have to Google. So for those who may just be listening in and may not have access to seeing the comments, but you're curious. So the concept is dream tending, and it's by Stephen with a PH Eisenstadt, which is Aizenstadt. I know I am definitely curious to explore that further. So, any final quick thing, Sarah, before we hop off the line and hand it back to Ron?
Oh, I would just say thank you for having me, and thank you for this time. I hope everybody will put a journal by their bed tonight and catch their dreams.
Absolutely. I know that I want to, and we
Yes,
really
indeed.
appreciate you being here. And again, this is Finding Our Fit on WRWK 93.9 FM. If you would like to check out more about the Foundation for Family and Community Healing and our work, you can go to healingedu.org. And we're always happy to have people reach out to learn more as well. Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you, Ron. We appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you all because I need to find my fit on a regular basis. I think those two. And dreams is one thing I haven't really done much with dreams. I'm going to have to go out and Google some of this stuff. But thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Allie. Delightful as always. So we're going to move back into our programming. We have a special show today, musical show starting up in about 3 minutes. Meanwhile, I'm going to play a song that you may or may not have heard of. And